Hello everyone, my name is Tyler Geer. Today I'll be presenting an in-depth look at how written miscommunication influenced and worsened one of the most infamous corporate scandals in recent history. The Volkswagen Dieselgate crisis, rather than focusing on emissions technology or engineering failures, will analyze how poor wording, evasive language, and delayed written responses deepened the public fallout. Our discussion centers on the ethical and strategic consequences of how companies write during a crisis. This presentation focuses exclusively on written communication, internal emails, public statements, press releases, advertisements, and regulatory responses. But we are not examining the defeat device itself, but rather how Volkswagen talked about it, delayed admitting it, and spun it through PR. I'll break down how specific word choices shaped public perception and affected the severity of the crisis. Think of this as a communication audit of a multinational company that failed to choose its words carefully. In 2007, a Volkswagen engineer referenced an acoustic function in an internal email. This was essentially code for the defeat device. The issue wasn't just the device, but the fact that such a key admission was buried in an email that didn't get challenged. Later, engineers flagged emissions irregularities, but those memos were ignored. Volkswagen had internal documentation that confirmed they were aware of the manipulation by September 4th, 2015. They did not disclose that knowledge until nearly 2 weeks later. That written silence contributed directly to public backlash. And here we have a timeline chart from the AFP of what happened with when they knew emissions were being defeated, when they admitted to it, and the aftermath. Publicly, Volkswagen used soft, evasive language. For example, their 2014 press materials repeatedly called their diesel vehicles clean, a term that clashed with reality. After the EPA issued a violation notice in 2015, Volkswagen's press statement said it was investigating irregularities, not cheating or manipulation. According to Ann Bez's thesis from the University of Southern California for her master's in communication, this vague phrasing caused public confusion and weakened trust. People saw through the spin. In crisis communication, vague statements don't buy time, they buy mistrust. Volkswagen's advertising told a different story. The Think Blue campaign made consumers believe Volkswagen was a leader in eco-conscious driving. Ads, brochures, and online material used phrases like low emissions and environmentally friendly. But these weren't accidental exaggerations. They were part of a campaign based on deception. This kind of strategic miscommunication left consumers feeling betrayed, and the written word had built trust and then destroyed it. When Dieselgate broke, media coverage exploded, and it was all written. Headlines like "Volkswagen lied" ran in the New York Times. German media used stronger terms like manipulable bear software. Social media piled on with tweets, memes, and satire. Volkswagen quickly lost control of its message. Their attempts to spin the story with vague phrasing were no match for thousands of independent voices. The lesson: in a digital age, written communication spreads fast, and inconsistencies will be found and amplified. This contrast is most clear when you compare Volkswagen's response to the EPA's response. The EPA's September 2015 notice was specific and direct. Volkswagen had installed illegal software to cheat tests. What was Volkswagen's response? We are working to clarify irregularities. They did not mention the defeat device or name any laws violated. Bez points out that this lack of regulatory reference made Volkswagen appear evasive and uncooperative. Their failure to take accountability in writing worsened the situation with both regulators and the public. So, what should have happened? Volkswagen should have immediately acknowledged the wrongdoing in writing with clarity and sincerity. Their team needed training in crisis writing and ethics. Public messaging and legal messaging must align. Most of all, internal documents should never conceal a risk. It must be acted on swiftly. A culture of transparency in writing could have helped them get ahead of the scandal. Let's take a second here and reflect. Poor communication, especially vague or dishonest writing, damages more than reputation. It delays recovery, triggers lawsuits, and hurts customers. The written word carries long-term consequences. To reinforce this, we'll engage in a brief activity. Let's discuss these questions. What's the difference between irregularities and manipulation in this context? Why do you think Volkswagen used softer language in their press statements? Rewrite one of Volkswagen's vague responses to be more honest and clear. How can companies maintain public trust through ethical writing? This discussion will help us apply lessons from Dieselgate to future scenarios, whether in business, engineering, or everyday communications. For question 3, the original Volkswagen statement is, Volkswagen is working at full speed to clarify irregularities. Now I'm going to give everyone some example responses to the questions. An example response for question 1. Irregularities is vague and non-committal. It suggests something minor or possibly accidental. Manipulation, on the other hand, implies intent, deception, and wrongdoing. In the context of Dieselgate, using irregularities minimized the seriousness of installing defeat devices, while manipulation would have admitted to a calculated effort to cheat emissions tests. For question number 2, example response would be that Volkswagen lightly wanted to control the narrative and limit legal liability. Softer language buys time, avoids panic, and can appear more neutral. However, it often backfires by making the company seem dishonest or evasive, especially when the public already suspects foul play. A rewritten response for question number 3 would be Volkswagen acknowledges that defeat devices were installed in certain diesel models. We are investigating how and why this occurred and are committed to full transparency with regulators and the public. This rewrite removes vague wording, acknowledges wrongdoing, and signals accountability which are all critical in crisis communication. For question number 4, example response would be, in a crisis, the public is watching for clarity and honesty. Written communication becomes the permanent record. It's what journalists quote, what lawyers investigate, and what customers remember. When that writing is evasive or misleading, trust erodes quickly. When it's sincere and specific, it can begin to rebuild confidence. All of the sources that were used in this presentation, including quotes from Volkswagen's press releases, the EPA's violation notice, and ANBES's USC thesis are listed here. These references allowed me to follow the trail of communication and see how the scandal played out, not just in what was done, but in how it was written about. Thank you for listening. I'm happy to take any questions or hear your thoughts.